Motor and transmission mocked up for the first time. Went in like it was designed for it. It just fell into place. It was perfect. So really, really happy with it. Now we're going to put it underneath the body, drop the body down, make sure the firewall clears. We'll be good to go. First mock-up of the body, the chassis and the motor and transmission. Everything clears, just barely. I think I may have a little bit of massaging still on the driver's side firewall. This side looks really good, but this side, I need to make sure I can pull the valve covers off. I may end up massaging this a little bit, so I've got a little bit more clearance, but beyond that, we look really, really good. This is gonna be a fun car when it's finished. Update on the 56. I'm working on a few things here. Obviously, I made a new core support to fit the radiator stack. I also cut it into the splash pan here. Put vents in order to vent air through. We've got a transmission cooler and then an oil cooler for the engine. That's all plumbed and set up and ready to go. Other things you can't see here, but I've got the supercharger plumbing lines, the AC lines, the valve cover vents to a catch can, all plumbed. Got it all routed, so it comes and it's basically tucked in and hidden. I've got a few spots here for a bulkhead for AC fittings and heater hose lines. The intake comes under here, comes around, and then goes into the inner fender. Currently, I'm trying my hand at bead rolling. I made this splash pan, and to keep the water and debris and stuff out of the air filter, make it removable. I've got a clamp here to simulate the maximum tire growth at full suspension. Make sure we don't hit anything as we go around. Other things, I've welded a couple of clips here, tabs. This is going to be for zip tying the heater hose and the AC lines. Come through here to a bulkhead. I've got grommets for all the different size hoses. And yeah, just making progress. I'm just basically mocking everything else up, getting it all set up before I start on the inside. There's still some more metal fabrication to do. Other items, I'm gonna have to build some hood support brackets. The stock ones hit the radiator cap, so that's not gonna work. So I have to make some of my own. And yeah, all the stock holes, I've got those welded up. Next up here on the list, I've got to make a panel here to prevent air from going through. And then I think I'm going to do a small top panel to secure the radiator in, and just kind of a little decorative cap over the top. So, other items here, this is on my heater hose, all the lines for the supercharger intercooler. I got a catch can tank, got to weld another bung in from that side. ZL1 pump, grommets, fittings, wiring, a bunch of other junk. AC items, bulkhead. This is all my AC lines. I got the tool coming to fill the AC lines here. Extra hoses, and yeah, just making progress. Why the yellow fender? If you're asking, the replacement one had a little bit too much Chinesium in it and didn't fit. The corner here came over almost a full inch. And I'd end up having to trim it, and this seam here would be a pain in the neck. And instead I just grabbed the old fender. There is a patch panel right here, but it's actually done pretty well. I didn't find any other issues with it. So for simplicity, that's why we've got the yellow fender on. When it's ready to when I'm ready to start body work, I'm going to send it out and get it blasted, and then epoxy prime it as well. Other items here, I'm starting to template out a little decorative cover for the radiator. It's actually also going to be my top mount point to hold it in from rotating forward on the front pegs. And I also fabricated a little piece down here just for a air dam vent, or a block for the air coming through. The other side is full of air intake and radiator, intercooler, and heater hose lines and a bunch of other junk. So that's likely not going to get any type of panel there. But now I think I've got my pattern here. What I want to do now, I got to play with a bead roller and figure out how to do embossed beads and get it nice and clean before I transfer it to metal and do my final pattern here. So it's coming along. Back working on the 56 after about a 8-month or so hiatus. Fell on the ice and broke my hip, unfortunately, so that slowed me down a little bit. But here we are nonetheless. I'm just finishing up here this afternoon. The passenger side seat mounts. The seats here are out of a 2015 Lexus IS 350F or something like that. Little 2-door sports coupe thing. So comfortable, they fit. They've got the release here so it goes forward. Fully electronic, all different directions. One thing I do have to modify here is I'm going to put a 3-point seat belt in this thing, which is kind of challenging considering there's no B-pillar to mount it to. So what I'm actually going to do is integrate it into the seat. So I'm going to weld something back here, I think, run a channel through here, make it come up here somewhere, come out of the top of the seat through the foam, and then down, and then clip to the receiver over there. So that's going to take a little bit of figuring out. But yeah, passenger side, driver's side is all mounted. I've got the bracing in there. I made sure that everything is tied into the supports that tie into the body, so it's not just sheet metal. The reason the floor is cut out there in the center is I'm going to drop that down a little bit. I think I'm going to put the ECU for the engine there, so I'll have room to clear all the motors and electronics and stuff underneath the seat when it moves forward and backwards. So that's the current thinking anyway. We'll see if it ends up there. But yeah, progressing. I think after this I've got to do some measurements, figure out where my holes are going to go in the dash for my my AC, my heat vents. So we'll see what that looks like here shortly. But slowly it progresses. So this happened. So Sunday, after I finished welding in parts of the floor and the seat braces, I had to take my oldest daughter to lacrosse game. So I quickly put everything away and took off. Well, about 20 minutes after I left, the moving blanket, not on the welding blanket down there, but on the moving blanket, or a piece of slag had caught it. And when apparently it was smoldering, I missed it, and it went up in flames and burnt the moving blankets and made a mess. Thankfully, it ran out of fuel, or else the whole garage and boat and everything else would have gone down. So I guess I'm lucky in that sense. But surprised to come out on Tuesday evening to grab something out of the shop here and to find this mess. So pretty disappointed. A little bit of a setback, to say the least. Not sure exactly what the extent of the damage is yet. Obviously, the shop is a huge mess. I've got professional cleaners coming in, insurance ticket open already, a claim. So they're gonna get everything cleaned up. I'm sure I'm gonna have to fight them on the insurance here for the car parts, if they're covered at all. But either way, I've got Wagner on the line. Those guys have been fantastic. Sent him pictures and he said, don't worry about it, ship it back. We'll go through it, fix it, make it look like it's new again and make sure it runs right, and it'll be good as new for you. So that's very much appreciated. The powder coating is obviously shot. So that's probably necessitates blasting the frame or chemically stripping it and figuring out another powder coating on it. Potentially the shocks, if they got hot, the valves may have gone on those, or the seals. Rubber in the bushings for the upper or lower control arms, I got to deal with and inspect those. Transmission, there's some plastic sensors that may have melted. So I have to investigate that. The carbon fiber drive shaft in there, take a look at it and see if it melted at all, if there's any damage to that. So that's another $2,200, get a new one made. The body fared pretty well, just smoke and soot damage and a little bit of surface rust from the fire, but that's all fixable. I don't see any major warping from any heat. Made a heck of a lot of smoke. Killed my welder, killed the cord, mini split, a few other things that are in trouble. Tile, I don't know until I clean it up. We may have lost a couple of tiles that need to be replaced. Yeah, and a huge mess and a whole lot of cleaning. Every one of the drawers, the cabinets, everything, even inside the toolboxes, everything's got a layer of soot on it everywhere. So, unfortunate. It's a setback. It's not going to stop, obviously. We don't give up. Gonna fix it. Probably take a month or 2 or 3 here to get it all back to where it was before the fire, and then keep working. I'm pretty close on the body. A few more things I gotta fabricate and finish, and then I'll get to start on the body work. But pretty surprised, stunned, disappointed. Good learning lesson, I guess, which is if you're MIG welding anything, make sure you've got extra blankets down and make sure that there's nothing around, and don't immediately leave. Check everything, make sure nothing is smoldering before you leave. So again, it could have been a whole lot worse. The thing just basically ran out of fuel, thank God. Or else the whole shop and the boat and everything would have gone. But after a lot of cleanup, I got to see if all the equipment, all the electronics are still good. Make sure there's no smoke damage there. But heck of a mess, that's for sure. So the last update for a little while. You know, kind of annoying that beginning of the year I broke my hip, and that put me on my butt for about 6 months, 3 months with no weight on it, a couple of screws in my hip to put it back together. And I had just gotten out here and started work on this thing again. Spent a couple 6-8 hours working on it, and then this happened. So hopefully this is the bad luck, you know, the last of the 2022 bad luck here. Yeah, but we'll see. We'll just keep pushing forward. Cleaning update. Making some good progress. Exhaust, I'm cleaning up. Stainless steel, steel wool, and a bunch of cleaner. Just making progress here. Body's cleaned up. The flash rust comes off, a little bar sweeper, and Brillo pads. Exhaust is, it was stainless steel wool, so it's basically ready to go to get Cerakoted. All the fuel lines, cleaning up all right. Chassis I've got stripped down. It's been getting picked up here in a couple of days. It's going to get stripped and repowder coated. Transmission, it's in pretty good shape actually. The sensors melted, so I got all new sensors for it. Upper control arms damaged the powder coating, so they're sitting down there. With the sway bar links as well. Those are getting repowder coated. One of the bushings melted, bump stops, so I've got replacements for all those. Motor obviously is created up here, what my wife is calling a coffin. So that's going back to Casey Wegner, and he's gonna make it like new for me. Stainless brake lines, they've got to get all cleaned up, so it's getting there, just taking time. But a couple more months and it'll be back together and where it needs to be. Obviously the rack needs to get all the flash rust off of it cleaned up. But we're getting there. Shocks are in good shape. The bowler sent all the transmission sensors. Everything's bagged and marked. Got all the stainless brake lines and fuel lines cleaned up. They turned out pretty good. Everything needs to be cleaned. Now I'm on to the little aluminum clips for the brake lines. So just time and effort, but everything's cleaning up pretty well. We're back at it again. Chassis is back from powder coating. It did a great job. Everything's blasted, really pleased with the way it came out. I'm waiting on the upper control arms and a couple of little pieces that are getting powder coated today. Back working on the body at the moment. Most of the interior metalwork is done. I'm rebuilding the door hinges so I can get all my gaps correct. A little delay again. I had a second surgery. These were the screws that were in my hip. Now they are no longer in my hip. A couple of titanium souvenirs here. Pretty funny, not for reuse. But the first surgeon, one of the screws, they put it in too deep. It went into the joint capsule, through the bone, and tore up a bunch of cartilage. So now I'm recovering from another hip surgery and probably have some permanent damage to deal with. So, yay. In classic 2022 fashion. Surprises just keep coming. But it's becoming fall here in New England, so I'm finally able to get back out here and start working on this. So should be finishing up the door hinges and then get the body on the chassis and start doing all my metal gapping on the doors and the panels, and then start on the body work. So look forward to finally getting that process started.